I don't have a video editing program yet because you can't find anything in an efficient manner on Google or Microsoft. So I'm loading these updated correspondence reports onto my social media accounts. It's really a lie that you have the freedom to buy and sell anything, participate in the economy, get information just by Google and the other references that are at the public library. Really, you need friends, and that's why they continually slander the socially isolated because the government's job is to help you communicate. And they find this person who, for no reason whatsoever, can't communicate, can't find their friends, and they need to convince themselves that you are an undesirable person, so they start throwing out slanderous accusations, which have the effect of further isolating you. You're never going to be able to go talk to a stranger in the street while the psychiatrists are slandering your schizophrenia like it was their job, and seemingly the entire government, because they don't want to acknowledge that they're not doing their job, which is to help everybody communicate. Again, the slandering of the schizophrenics is simply a pagan anti Catholicism. They don't want to acknowledge that we are rightly aware of an historical legal status signaling of an ecclesiastical imposition by the government. The schizophrenics are simply aware of an historical signal that is a status signal implying that some Islamist terrorist can put you in their religious school. In this case, it's called a psychological behavioral health mental hospital, which is obviously absurd because there isn't even any real medical disease. There is just a physical awkwardness, a stigma, a fetishization of the physical awkwardness, and the ugly way that we speak when we are angry. It is obviously a totally benign physical condition that isn't even a medical condition. And as I keep saying, the only reason why psychopaths are attacking people, who the psychopaths are obviously not sick at all, the only reason they attack people is because the psychiatrists say that they are sick. They attack then whoever makes them nervous, and the psychiatrists are complicit in shielding these dangerous criminals from prosecution. So, needless to say, it's a pretty scandalous kind of oversight on the part of the government, who keeps participating at the clerical court in remanding us to these involuntary psychological institutions where they detain you and try to teach you some kind of spiritual philosophical discipline. Obviously, because they think that you're supposed to be subjected to some kind of servitude, or that you're supposed to fulfill some kind of purpose as a man or as a woman, which we do not recognize, and which obviously requires the expressed informed consent of the individual to be legal by the exact original definition of the First Amendment, as I keep saying. Again, the accusation is that we are insane, which is to say that they do not. Such people back in the 19th century was somebody who did not express any interest in information. They don't criticize anything. They don't talk about good and evil. They don't express any interest in information that they don't already have. This is an insane person who would have been called antisocial. I simply don't want to walk around in the street to try to get computer code for my computer like everybody else who goes out on the town to chat it up in order to get computer code at the club and at the bar. I don't consider that to be a physical disability, but insanity was never a physical disability. Insanity is the ignorance of anybody who makes you nervous because you're afraid of neurosis. I am not afraid of neurosis, but it is a waste of time. And they make it cost you. When you try to go around in the street and ask people for computer code, they make it cost you. And they know that by terrorizing the schizophrenic a little bit, they're costing you a lot of time. And they're preventing you from talking in the ugly, angry way that we do. Sorry, but that's too bad. And when you talk in that ugly way, they start terrorizing you with the threat of being remanded to one of their spiritual re-education institutions. Obviously, the reason why psychiatry did not end when the Freudian psychoanalysis entirely did the job in a much more efficient fashion. And obviously now you only need a psychiatrist to give you a little computer code, but it would cost $5 and there's not enough money to advertise it. The reason why the psychiatry didn't end is because they are obviously complicit in a huge amount of sexual exploitation within the academy. Obviously, husbands and boyfriends threaten to remand their wives and girlfriends to psychiatric phrenological institutions against their will and without any kind of express consent. So that's one source of the abysmal awkwardness that causes people to react in a pathological manner when I bring up the subject of how we can't get orderly computer code. But obviously, the larger issue for most ordinary people is the manner in which they purchase our elections in the United States by buying massive amounts of advertising and controlling what people can see referenced in the public media system, because nobody wants to go around and chat it up at the club and at the bar at the coffee house anymore just to get references. There is no economy in the street for going around and getting references. And all they would have to do is list the publishing houses at the municipal authority. They don't even have to list every individual who wants to publish. Obviously, you have to get along with the people in your house or the people where you store your publication on the internet where the servers are. So all you have to do is list the individual property owner at the municipal government website and then require the uh, property owner to provide the public domain information that is the individual wishing to publish who lives there or who keeps their information there. But obviously, we would have many more choices of houses to use, millions of them, and you only need one to publish. So that problem would resolve itself. All they really have to do is list the property owners wishing to publish at the municipal authority, and there would have been no problem for years and years and years. A thing that would cost $2, a thing we could easily pay for, 1 kilobyte of data, 100 characters, where you list your address, your internet address, or whatever way you want to list your address and your title and what you do. Wouldn't even have to be every individual, every proprietor in the town. You could even do it if they only own land. Then they can list themselves as a publisher, and everybody who keeps their information in that house can be listed under that website. That is the obvious way and seemingly the only way to organize the internet. The entire internet is massively disorderly because the government insists on telling us to look at this and look at that, and you're supposed to look at this article and this video today, right? And all we ever needed was the equivalent of a yellow pages on the internet with everybody listed in some rational order. The obvious way to do it would be proprietors in the town where people live and by the sector, the economic sector that they claim to service. So you can list that yourself by the property owner where you keep your publication on the internet in the town by economic sector on one list, and that's all we ever needed to organize the internet. But they want to say that we are antisocial. I see the value of associating with other people. I'm a reclusive person who's been alone for my entire life. I understand the value of social interaction better than anyone. But I lost years and years for the want of one ordinary conversation where we talk about which website we like to use, because there is not any infrastructure for going around and talking to strangers and buying books and magazines in the street. It does not exist anymore. There is no way to do it in the street. And until you find a way to list everybody who's trying to publish something, there is not going to be a way to have a fair election or a fair public discourse. The government is always going to be deciding what you think, and the incumbent parties are always going to buy the election with massive advertising blasts because they're able to decide what the content of the listing in the public media that everybody's looking at is, what it makes reference to, who it makes reference to, and what you see. So you're living in a giant sectarian socialist media conglomerate monopoly. And as the Republicans told you back in 2004, it is an Islamist, sectarian, socialist, fascist academic crime network that is controlling the entire public discourse and wants to remand people to spiritual special re education when they are ill served by the fetishization of the neurotic going around to the bar and to the club to talk it out with the priest who happened to have been given one computer code with the information that they need to order the information on the internet. They want us to walk around in the streets so they can have a sexual interaction with a Catholic girl, and we're not going to do it. And we're not even finding listings of psychologists. All you would need was one psychologist with a $5 computer code consisting of listings of publications on the internet to solve the entire problem of all the people with neurosis. But the fact that you die of unemployment in this country, the fact that having poor performance at your job will kill you, still is not a medical problem for a physician to solve. That is a social and political problem. And you can take your performance enhancing psychological fitness drugs to go around and talk to all the priests in the street who are going to physically hand you one video and one text to read today and tell you what to read all day long. I am going to be waiting for them to put the addresses of the publishing houses in a list in the local area by whatever title, whatever address they want, and what they want, and whatever economic sector they say they are in.